All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. My name is E.R. Anderson. I'm the executive director of Charis Circle. Charis Circle is the nonprofit programming arm of Charis Books, and Charis Books is the South's oldest independent feminist bookstore. We are always honored to be here in the space of the Allen Avenue Research Library on African American culture and history. We're very grateful to all of the librarians who make this space home to so many of us and who welcome us in lots of different ways to share stories and memories and to gather in celebration of great books. So thank you. And thanks to everyone who supports the library. They have a great new library card out, which you can get just Charlotte Palmer's artwork on it. So check that out if you haven't yet. It is a beautiful, beautiful card honoring the first librarian here. We are here tonight to celebrate Bernice. And Bernice McFadden is known in the library world, in the bookstore world, as a writer's writer. Y'all probably have heard that phrase. But it means somebody who is beloved by people who love words and who work with words as their craft. And sometimes that means that they are a hidden gem. But Bernice L. McFadden has been both a hidden gem and has been fortunate enough to find her people. And I suspect that many of y'all are her people. So we're very glad that you're here tonight to honor and celebrate her. Bernice is an assistant professor of creative writing at Tulane University, and she's the author of several critically acclaimed novels, including Sugar, The Warmest December, Loving Donovan, Nowhere is a Place, Glorious, Gathering of Waters, which was a New York Times editor's choice and one of the 100 notable books of 2012. The Book of Harlan, which was winner of the 2017 American Book Award and the NAACP Image Award for Outstanding Literary Fiction, and Praise Song for the Butterflies, which was longlisted for the 2019 Women's Prize for Fiction. She's a 5-time Hurston Wright Legacy Award winner, award finalist, as well as the recipient of 3 awards from the Black Caucus of the American Library Association. This is her memoir that we are celebrating tonight, and it is very, very special. We are really excited to get to have her in conversation with somebody who we have gotten to celebrate before, Karen Good Marable. Karen was raised in the HBCU town of Prairie View, Texas. She is a respected writer known for her distinctive voice and Southern sensibilities. With a career spanning 3 decades, Karen's byline has appeared in numerous magazines, including The New Yorker, Essence, Oxford American, and New York. Her essays and poetry have been published in several books and best of collections, including And It Don't Stop, the best hip hop journalism of the last 25 years, and Bigger Than Bravery, Black Resilience and Reclamation in a Time of Pandemic. Karen's first book, Yaya and the Sea, which came out from Deneen Miller Books, was chosen as a 2024 New York Times, New York Public Library Best Illustrated Children's Book, and it's on sale out in the halls as well. So we're gonna have a wonderful conversation, and we'll have an opportunity to hear from y'all. The mic is over here, so when question time comes, you can just come line up. We'll take about 5 questions from the audience, and then we'll have a signing and meet and greet in the lobby afterwards. So thank you all so much for being here. Please put your hands together in celebration of Bernice L. McFadden. Hey, right here. We'll be doing it together. So just want to say thank everyone for coming to celebrate our sister.
You know, when Bernice gave me the call, she didn't get the question out. She was like, "Hey, Karen, can you?" I said, "Yep." um, but I've known Bernice a long time, and to me, this is an engagement. Um, Particularly of your first memoir, um, which I think is about how we become artists. And I don't think that's like a small thing, like when you think about, say, Richard Pryor and how, Richard Pryor became a comedian. And you think about all the things that we already know about him, Grace and Horror House and all, that oh my, all kinds of things. But you find humor in that, and it builds you as an artist. And I feel like that about Firstborn Girls, like by the time I finished, I told you I wept because I understood the sacrifice that it takes, and that you took. 'Cause I thought I knew you. I don't know her. I thought I knew her. Um, I just want to say one other thing. So Bernice and I go way back, a little. I'd say a little bit. We were both in the same MFA program. Um, 13, 14. So here's the funny thing. So when I first met Bernice, of course I knew her and I had read her. So we were part of an MFA program in Brooklyn, and I had just had my daughter. She was 3 months old, and I get back to class because I took taken a semester off. And who was sitting in class but Bernice McFadden? And I was like, you know who was in class? And let me tell y'all something. Bernice was tolerating us the entire time. Okay, which is probably for her age book entry. Like, I'm just here trying to, teach. This is what I'm doing. But that is how we first met each other. And I'm so happy that we have continued to be together. So much money. We have a number of work if it does. So all right. So I wanted to start with the beginning. Um, so I have to tell y'all, I don't know if anybody's read the book or seen the book, but the first line of Bernice's book goes, "The first thing I want to tell you is that on September 27th, 1967, I died. I was 2 years and 1 day old." Well, what a compelling opening line. That's number one. Um, what compelled you to start there? And this is saying that memoir, of course, is different than autobiography. Right. What compelled you to start, like, if you're making this artful experience, what compelled you to start there?
So I started in so many different places. I started, I first started when my father died in 2005. And then I started when my mother gave birth to the twins. I was all over the place. And the voice in my head said to me exactly what it said to me when I was writing my first novel, Sugar. It was say the thing. And the thing is, on September 27th, I was again. And that was the beginning. That was like a second beginning of my life. Yeah. So that's where I always start. Now also craft wise. Well, that's the hook, right? Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing that hooks the reader. Like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's why it's so fun.
One of the things about the book is I don't want to know how she died and came back, but there are echoes that carry throughout this book. And but there are echoes. And I just felt like through you coming back to life again, again, again is part of the resilience of the book, even though you were going through a lot of throughout the book. You started writing the book in June 2020, and you said, which is an explosive time, but you're saying pure anger and fear compelled you to write the book. thinking about the context of Firstborn Girls, what was that about?
So it was, we were in the midst of the pandemic. George Floyd had been murdered. People were in the street. People were in the street all around the globe, right, protesting the maltreatment of Black folk here in America. And I was like, again,
Yeah.
right? My great-great-grandmother had gone through this. All my foremothers had seen this type of violence and this type of reaction. My generation had seen it. Now it was my daughter's generation. It's like, I was there, man.
Yeah.
And the idea that America is consistently trying to whitewash or completely erase their maltreatment of us, the history of their maltreatment of us. And I was like, I need to write this down. And I'm also very interested in how the past informs the present, right? And we're just like, it seems to me, we're in this loop. Every generation experiences things that the generation before them has experienced. And I wanted to document that, if not for my own sanity, right? But certainly for my descendants.
Well, I mean, one of the things that I think you do beautiful in every book, but it's interesting to see you do it in nonfiction, is bringing history to us, right? You always like, not only like place us where we need to be, but you contextualize the experience. You contextualize the experience, right? So, and who said if you don't tell your story, they'll kill you and they'll say you liked it. Was it Zora? Yeah. You know, and so I thought it was very interesting that Firstborn Girls is out now this time, right? And so when you were mad then, you like, well, here we are again.
Here we are.
Yeah.
And you know, the book was supposed to come out in 2023. I think it was 2023. And you know, I don't believe in writer's block. I don't believe it.
No,
let me rephrase that. I don't call it writer's block. So you know, your body, if you overwork your body's gonna break down. It's just gonna stop working. If you overwork your mind, the same thing happens. The imagination needs rest. And so when the words stop coming, it's frustrating to me because I want to power through, but my imagination is like, I need a break. Go out and do something else. Right? So that's what was happening. All these roadblocks. And again, I had the story, but I didn't have the structure. And that's what I was struggling with for those years between the time it was supposed to come out and the time it actually was published. Well, was finished actually.
How did you know what the story was? Like, you knew that you wanted to tell this story about, and I'm going to tell you, like, I'm thinking it's about like the Firstborn Girls. At first, I thought when I first heard the title, I was like, are we talking about birth order in some way? And but of course, like you took it so much deeper. It's about your grandmother, your mother, and you. Yeah. And how, again, the echoes, how your lives were similar and different, and how you kind of broke generational cycles.
Still trying.
Yeah.
Still trying.
Yeah.
I wanted to celebrate my mother and my grandmother and the women that came before them, the women who raised them. You know, my family is very fractured. It's not the family it was when I was growing up in the 70s, right? My great aunts were. And once they started dying out, we started going apart. And then, of course, social media came into play. Facebook became big. And it's like, well, we don't have to get together because we can see what you're doing on Facebook, but it's like cousins don't know cousins. And I was also thinking about all the stories because I was the kid in the family that was allowed to be in the room with the adults. Because I was quiet, I don't know the girls like this, but I was quiet and I was really observant and I enjoyed the stories. That was my favorite part of family gathering. It was same stories over and over and over and over. And it was like, well, what's going to happen to these stories? We'll have to write them down.
Yes. Well, the thing that I thought was also beautiful about, now I'm jumping around, everything we talked about was so right on out the window, is that somehow you were able to do a few things. I'm just gonna jump right into this. So with Firstborn Girls, it being your first memoir, even though you've written a lot of nonfiction, you were able to make it in both a conversation, right? Meaning, when I was reading it, I felt like I was at my Uncle Billy's house in Cascade, sitting at his knee when he's in his lazy boy chair, and I'm listening to my mama and my aunts and uncles, and they're telling stories about their lives. And you somehow made this feel both like a conversation and like a work of, I don't want to say it's like a work of fiction, but read like fiction.
Yeah.
Do you see this?
Yeah. And that's why I love to read creative nonfiction that reads like fiction, right? The nonfiction novel.
Yeah.
Right. I read Sour Groom's Yellow House, Memoir, reads like fiction. The House on Sugar Beach reads like fiction. So those were the books that I was drawn to.
I will say too, like it felt like kitchen table talk too. I kept
Yes.
thinking about Karen Williams's
Yes.
kitchen table series, and it felt like kitchen table talk, telling these stories, and the way you crafted the stories were like little vignettes. Maybe I think that's the word, like vignettes. That yeah.
Oh, it's 6 p.m.
Yeah. And so I was not prepared to be so at the end of the book devastated, because I thought, you go through your, I mean, there in the beginning of the book, y'all, there is a I can't show what it is because I got to think about that. The family tree, right? So in the beginning of the book, there's a family tree, and it's necessary because when you bring up an ancestor or when you bring up a relative, like she goes deep into the history of that relative. Like, so Jimmy came over to the house. Now Jimmy was my cousin, my mom's dad. And so Jimmy said, but sometimes I was like, okay, so let me not Jimmy, okay, because because everybody showed up again.
Yeah.
That which is, I don't think that's very easy to do.
But that's all I do, right? This is I love genealogy. I think people here that follow me, that I'm always talking about my family tree, my family history. I love sitting with my ancestors.
Yeah.
I am so happy to sit with them.
Angel sisters.
Angel sisters. Yeah.
I would like us to talk about that.
Yes. And so that was easy for me. That's just the way my brain works.
Yeah.
But so Angel sisters.
So Angel Sisters is, I remember this. I remember first seeing it on social media. She was like, I got a word and I need everybody to pay attention and to use it. Yeah. And I thought it was so interesting because I was like, oh, word. But it was beautiful. Angel Sisters. It's like, what can you tell us a little bit about?
So when I was writing the memoir, I decided that I was just going to plow ahead. I don't know how you work, right? I'll write and then go back, write and go back. It takes a lot of time. It was like, because are you a perfectionist? I think you are. Yes, geez. So I said, I'm wasting time. Just keep moving forward. So maybe, after 3 or 4 days, I stopped and I started scrolling through on the computer, just looking at what I had written. Many misspelled words. But this one word, it's like, what is this? And on Word, when you misspell a word, there's like a squiggly red line under that word. And so it kept coming up, angel sister, angel sister, angel sister. Obviously, in my mind, I was writing ancestor, but it came out as angel sister. Like, oh. And so I Googled it, and it didn't exist. And I called my attorney. I got a trademark.
That's right. I mean, well, the beautiful thing is that Angel Sisters begins like, I mean, you see it as soon as page 5. And I felt like the Angel Sisters were covering you like through the entire time, always. So, and then that the book was an homage to them. I want to switch real quick about being a firstborn girl, and I said already that I thought it was less about birth order, but something you said in the book, you said that a lot of times firstborn girls can feel, and I would like to say not just firstborn girls, God forbid you're the only girl, right? So that's a whole thing too, and I think that the two meet, right? Like the responsibility that is. We wouldn't say required, but it's maybe expected.
Yeah,
Tiptoeing. But what you said was that you become parentified.
Yeah.
And which means, well, why don't you tell us what that means?
Yeah. I mean, basically, you don't have a childhood, right? Maybe by age 6 or 7, and I want you to think about when did they put the enslaved children out to the field?
Ooh.
6, 7, they were out to field, right? So I think it's a generation thing, something that we carry over from slavery times, but I don't know if no, I don't think it's a cultural thing because I had a young Indian lady who came to my reading in Philadelphia from Kenya. And she was like, yeah, firstborn girl. Yes, I know. So
I thought about that in terms of being a cultural thing. I was like, I don't think it is.
No.
I think that it.
right. Yeah. So for me, it just means responsibility. There's a quote that I've seen circulating around the internet, and it says something to the effect of a firstborn girl is the best son any father will ever have. Right? Because we have all of the qualities of whatever a male child is supposed to have. I have 2 brothers. I have 1 sister. And we girls, we know how to paint, we have tools, we do all that, and they can't screw in a light bulb. It's ridiculous. So, yes, I'm the eldest of 4. I am 3 years older than my middle brother and 13 years older than my youngest sibling. And I was put in charge of my middle brother at the age of 5. And I was taking him to nursery school when I was 6. And I had to go to first. So I had to drop him at nursery school 2 blocks away and then walk another 2 blocks to first grade. And so you know how you hear this thing when you say, oh, little mama, you see a little girl, she's so grown. That is not a badge that you should give any little girl because something is going on in her. A child should be able to be a child. And often firstborn girls don't. They lose their childhoods very early on because they're expected to behave like adults. They're given adult responsibility, right?
Well, one thing that I did find very interesting is that when another trait of the parentified firstborn girl, that when you do decide to take care of yourself, it is seen as a selfish act.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really deep. But because, well, you didn't bring this part up, but I will say it, when the twins were born, basically, Vivian, your mother, was like, look, here you go. You know, I need help. So, and how old were you? You said 13. So you were taking care of twins. Like you were.
I had a whole summer by myself. So I had to take care of my younger brother.
Yeah.
So I knew how to do these things. And it was just normal. It's like, this is just how I was raised. Like it had been normalized. But I am the third parent.
Right.
I'm the third parent. Even now, I'm the third parent. And that shows up in the dynamics that I have with my siblings.
Right. Okay. Well, I will say that I also felt you very much fighting it. Ooh. I felt like you were very much fighting against that. Like you were not I think by the time the twins came, you were like, hold on, wait a minute now. I was like, I'm 13. I want to do things. You had already experienced a lot, you know, the car accident, losing your life and then coming right on back, and all of the things that, you know, I'm going to get into Robert and what was going on, but let's talk first about escape.
Yeah.
Right? Because when you become mortified in that way, you're like, no. So when you started buckling the system, you started thinking about ways to escape. But I should first say, so that you have a little context, one of the things that she wanted to escape was apartment 85.
Yeah, apartment 85, 300 Sullivan Place. So, how many of you in here have read The Warmest December? This is another reason why I kind of struggled with writing the memoir, because so much of it I had written under the guise of fiction in The Warmest December. I was like, well, it's the same story, you already know it. So I think in The Warmest December, it's apartment 5A. Right. So, so yeah, you know, I really wanted to murder my father. Like I thought about that all the time because life with him was so miserable. But once you start doing research about patricide, it's common. Right? It's kind of common. So, but the thought of it, I'm not saying. There we go. I'm sorry. So, but you know, the angel sisters in the universe, they are always saving me from my foolish self. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, Gwen, she was like, you know, I'm going to take you to Berkeley. Right. And that was such a gift, right? So it gave me, it was distracting. And I knew that if I behaved, I would go back and it was something. And so that's what I spent September to May to June thinking about. It's like, be a good girl, do the right thing, so you go to Barbados. And it rejuvenated. And that, I think that's where it started for me with the whole escape, because I'm still escaping. Things get bad, I pack a bag.
But is it a escape now? Because like, okay, you tell me. So, you know, the way I saw you escape, or the way I read it in the book was, you know, things were tough. And I do want to talk a little bit about what it costs to tell the truth. But you know, I know suicide crossed your mind, and you were very detailed about, okay, so if I do this is gonna be maybe not that, but maybe this.
Right.
So I mean, it went from, you know, you said, okay, so maybe not suicide, so maybe books, maybe boarding school, Barbados, which is some of the most beautiful writing, I have to say, in the book. Really, like it was palpable. I could tell that you found a great deal of peace there. But yeah, I felt you trying to leave. Wait, sorry. What I was gonna say was that escape seemed to me to turn into freedom. Like you weren't, like by the end, and even maybe now, but you tell me, you know, it didn't feel so much like escape. It felt like you knew, okay, I need to rest or I need to be free. Because I loved how you were insistent upon, once you got to be a certain age in the book, you were insistent upon finding a way to fly.
Yeah.
Literally, like you were like, okay, I'm gonna get a job.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna do like, I'm gonna get away.
I mean, and it started with books. That was my escape, right? I could close the door, I could open a book and just be out of my reality. And even that upset my father because I came home one summer and he had thrown away all of my clothes, right? That's the narcissist. So, and then it went from there. So then there was Barbados and I had that. And then luckily I was able to go to boarding school and get out of that house completely for 9 months of the year.
And that had a lot to do with your grandmother.
Yes. Yeah.
Delma was like, "Oh, get out of here!
Get
You
out
want
of
to be a
here.
babysitter all summer? Come on, you better go."
Yeah, my uncle had been going to. He had gone to various boarding schools, got kicked out of home. And so I was aware of it. And he was a comedian. Like he would tell them stories. I said, "This sounds like camp, but with books." And I'm good with that. But when I told my friends I was going to boarding school, the idea was, "You bad kid," because that's what people in my community thought. Like you only go to boarding school if you're a problem child. And I was like, "I'm not a problem." So, and it has followed me throughout my life. I mean, yes, even I think that is a better word. It's freedom. So when things get a little too heavy and I start feeling a little off kilter, I'll pack a bag and go somewhere that makes me happy, recalibrate, and then come on back home. But I even do it, and this is something that I found out just during my research about trauma. People who just leave, it's like once I leave you all tonight, I will go into my room and just sit and be quiet and be with myself. I don't have to like read up, right? But I would have big parties at my home in Brooklyn, and I'd leave my people and go to my bedroom for like 15, 20 minutes. Just to, but I understand that that's part of trauma.
Speaking of Robert, your father, one thing that like there was a moment in the book where he found your diary.
Yeah.
And your mama said something so good. Her mother named Vivian. And Vivian said, I wrote down, you should never write down what you don't want people to know. Like after you'd gone to her and you were like, look at what he did, and she was like,
yeah.
Because in the diary you were telling the truth. Like, I just can't stand this man. But you writing a memoir, right? And her saying you should never write down what you don't want people to know. How did you balance that? Like,
because I want people to know this.
Yeah.
I want people to know this, right? So my mantra is everything that lives in the dark dies in the light. You have to tell your truth. And I didn't want anybody to write my story for me. Like when I'm dead and gone. Here's my truth right here on the book.
So those moments where I did notice there were a couple of times you were like, I've never said this before.
Yeah.
I've never admitted it before.
Yeah.
Did you find that you were more empowered in writing the memoir than maybe writing that story, but fictionalizing it? Like, I know one of the things you said, like, which I kind of, when you said one of the things you didn't want to admit was that your daughter was born with the umbilical cord around her neck, but that wasn't it.
Right.
The thing that you were nervous about was that she might not make it because you did. Like, your life was spared, so you were hoping your whole pregnancy that her life would be like she was taken because you were there. But those are the kinds of things that you say, and I think a lot of us can relate. Maybe not exactly, but those things that linger in the back of our heads where we're like, you know,
Do I deserve this? That's again, do I deserve it? Putting myself first, putting the people I love ahead of me, and so always waiting for that other shoe to drop. Right, and I think that's part of Catholic school education, right? The church really, Catholic church really messed me up. So yeah, I spent years thinking something's gonna happen to this child, and I was spared. And do you know, I just, you know, a quick sidebar. In 2010, January 2010, she was in a horrific car accident and she walked away without a scratch. And I was like, that's it. There it is. Yeah.
Oh my God, okay. Because you know, just in that, I'm thinking about, you have this beautiful quote in the beginning about fire, right? And I'm not gonna go too deep, but like fire, I think I said this earlier, figures a lot in this book. And then you bring up your cousin, Dora, and how fire has come up a lot, right? In the world, but Dorlisha.
Yeah,
Okay, so Dorlisha basically, you get a call and you find out that she has died by, um, like this lightning snowflake.
well, the story and the death certificate says, died from lighting stone.
Right.
When she actually set herself aflame. Now, if you read the book of Harlem, I already wrote about it. Like I wrote about that. So I have been writing about my family since the beginning of my career. So a lot of these real people will feel like you'll know them. You're like, oh, I know this one from this book and this one from the other book. I love my people. They are such a source of knowledge for me and entertainment. And I just think that they are fascinating people.
Your people,
My people.
your people are fascinating, okay? Between your grandmothers alone, I was like, wow, but you wrote them so real, like they just felt like real, take no shit women who have seen things and the way they show love. Like when Thelma was Gwen that showed you the tap shoes.
Yes.
And so there was a moment where Bernice got access to a trunk. And well, no, I'm messing things up. Okay, we have a chat. There's a okay.
Yeah, that was my father's mother, Gwen, the baby one. She's very secretive. She had this trunk, and she was just a really complicated woman. She didn't be around. She didn't really like us grandkids. She was random. But when she was a dancer during the Harlem Renaissance, right? And so when she heard that I was taking tap, she got excited. She bought me some tap shoes. And then I was at the apartment with her, and she opened up the trunk, and I was like, "What trunk is this?" And there were these photos of her. She wanted me to see her in her dancing costume, and there were newspaper clippings, and I was like, who is this person? But that was such a gift.
Yeah.
That was such a gift. So I've been writing for years.
And the fact that she was so open, but when you tried, like you couldn't go too far with her now because she was like, all right, well, time you go.
I'm looking too hard.
Yeah.
Or you couldn't pop up on her. She lived in a building with the security. And we just popped up and she would tell that security man that they can call it out. That's not how my grandmother was.
Well, I wonder, so what is the cost of truth telling? Is there a cost? Did you feel like there was a cost or a reckoning or I think telling the truth, is there a price?
I think it was very freeing for me. The book just came out. My family, because no one read any passages before it got
So you want to show it?
no. I had some conversations with people, but I did get a call from a cousin who was like, girl, so and so is having it. And I was like, first of all, I don't know this cousin, right? This so and so who's having it. And I said, well, so this is how the so and so is. She is the daughter of the son of my great aunt Helen, my grandmother's sister. And she's not upset with me. She's upset with the family that they didn't tell her. Because she just discovered that her grandfather is not who she thought he was. And my cousins tell him, so we've been trying to tell him she didn't want, but now that it's, it's on paper and black and white, and the evidence, I'm not just throwing stuff out there. There's evidence.
And I got weights and paper.
I don't know. That might be when the paperback comes out. We can sit down again and be like, so what happened?
What happened?
Yeah. And right now it's fine.
Well, I want to take things back for time to. So you said in an interview once that one of your traits as a writer, or one of your useful traits, like one of the things that you can do well is empathy. Mm-hmm. And so when you are writing about these difficult characters, like I don't know, like Robert, or those fights, or maybe JJ, yeah, right? How did you keep empathy there? How were you able to maintain empathy within the writing? Was it like an emotional experience, or?
I'm very clear that we all have backstories. Like, Bayesian would say he wasn't born bad.
Yeah.
Right? Something happened. And so I always try to keep that in mind. I'm always trying to extend grace. It's easier when there's distance. But if you're on top of me and you're a terrible person, I'm not showing any empathy in that moment.
Distance in like hindsight is 2020, like where
there's that. Or, years, rooms, states. Right? I can sit back if I'm home and there's a person that's aggravated me and I'm thinking all these terrible things. Once I leave and I'm out of that energy, I know what the story is. Yeah. So I think that empathy is a very important element to writing, and writing well. We should be able to empathize with your characters, the good ones and the bad.
I think the part of the beauty of you writing those difficult scenes, some of which were extremely difficult, is walking that line and telling the truth. Like, I just got to tell the truth. Like, I don't know. Someone said, this was Joan Didion, if you didn't want me to write badly about you, you should have acted better.
Yeah.
I think it was Didion, but I can't be this. Yeah.
And Libras.
Yeah.
It's a balance thing.
It is a balance thing. So like, y'all have your delusions. Y'all do have that Aries on the other side. And it's like, I have a machete in my mind. Please don't forget this. Oh
no. Okay. You want me to fix it?
I think it's there.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm gonna read this small section concerning my aunt Anna. She was such a sweet woman. She was our prayer warrior, my grandmother's sister. She was a big woman, 400 pounds when she finally passed away in 1996. But you know, I only saw one side of her, and this story is based on the stories that were told. So this happens in the 50s in Brooklyn. My mother and my grandmother, they are living with my Anna and her daughter, Peggy. And my aunt Anna is dating a jockey. She liked tiny men. So the sisters took to taking day trips up to Saratoga Springs to watch the horse race. It was there that she caught the eye of a jockey named Bennett. When Thelma saw the heat between them, she smirked. He ain't much taller than me. Thelma was 4'11". While Thelma was petite, save for her buxom bosom. Anna was taller with wide hips and thick legs. She had a penchant for small, delicately framed men. Or maybe they had a penchant for her. She and her men always looked like the physical manifestation of the number 10. And Benny became an item, and before long, he was spending his days off in Brooklyn with her. For a while, it was heaven, and then one night, after one too many drinks, he hit her and unleashed hell. Vivian and Peggy, who were in the living room at the time, scrambled to the kitchen for safety. From there, they watched Anna transform into a welterweight wrestler. After he hit her, Anna grabbed Benny by the throat, lifted him off the couch, and shook him like a rag. His limbs were still flapping when she slammed him face down onto the floor. Dazed, he twisted his head around on his neck and gazed up at her in disbelief. He opened his mouth to speak, but she was on him again. After a few cuffs to his head, Anna took hold of his collar with one hand. The other she hooked into the waistband of his trousers, hauled him up from the floor, and heaved him onto the expensive-looking glass and mahogany coffee table. The impact sent shards of glass everywhere. That's the first time Peggy and Vivian ever saw a man cry. Did he call the cops? I asked after hearing the story for the first time. Did you, Vivian? Which is Black speak for no. Afterward, Anna patched his laceration and they crawled into bed together. The next day he left and never came back. When I first heard this story, I found it unbelievable because Anna was the gentlest, kindest, most generous and loving person I knew. I'd seen her frustrated, peeved even, but never enraged. While her temper was a mystery to me, it was legendary with other family members and people who lived in the Brookline housing projects. Her daughter Peggy was just 16 when she gave birth to her first son, Wayne, and then Earl. And then the following year, in 1966, James came along when she was 19 years old. There was a fourth boy named Benjamin, whom Anna took in and raised as her own when his mother couldn't. This quartet of boys were affectionately dubbed Miss Rose's boys, and woe to the person who ever brought any harm to any one of them. The man who owned the corner store learned that the hard way. One afternoon, Anna decided to make one of her famous 6-layer coconut cakes. She had all the ingredients, but was low on flour, and so sent James across the street to get a fresh pan. The store owner knew James. In fact, he was well acquainted with the entire family. So why he got it in him to slap James simply because he made direct eye contact remains a mystery. Eyes tearing, James ran back home holding his stinging cheek. What happened to you? Where's my flower? Anna asked over the large messy bowl. He slapped me, James said, sniffling. Anna's brown eyes turned black. He who? She growled. The man at the store. Anna pulled herself up from the table, throwing her tweed coat over her house dress. She didn't bother to put on shoes. She just beelined it out of the apartment in her slippers. It was late October, chilly but not freezing. Anna tramped across the fallen leaves, crossing the street against the light, throwing death stares at the motorists angrily honking their horns. At the store, the man looked up to see Anna marching through the doorway with all four boys in tow. She set her clenched fist on her hips and fixed her eyes on his. Did you hit my boy? The man didn't miss a beat. Yes, I did. Why? Because he was looking at me. Anna's fists balled tighter. You see these boys, she said, sweeping her arm over their heads. These here are my boys, and I'm the only one who hits them. You better not ever lay nan finger on them ever again. You hear me? The man's lips curled into a simpering smile. And, she added, leaning in so close that he could smell the Pepsi Cola on her breath, if you do, I'll kill you. The man rolled his eyes and chuckled. Get out of my store. Anna gave him one last long, fuming look and turned around. Come on, boys, she commanded. The family filed out of the store. Maybe the proprietor had made a habit of slapping children without consequence. Maybe he had never had a woman threaten to kill him. Whatever the case, he was, shall we say, perturbed. And before Anna could cross the street, he launched a 40-ounce bottle of Colt 45 at her back. It missed and shattered on the ground, wetting her legs. Stunned, she spun around and stared down at the broken glass and puddle of beer foaming at her feet. Her lips parted and then closed. She took a deep breath, glanced up at the sky, and then down at her terrified boys. Go home. Get home now, she demanded in a calm and even voice. Go on. It's okay. The children scampered across the street but did not go into the apartment building as ordered. Instead, they huddled together in the courtyard to watch what happened next. Anna shoved her hands into the coat pockets, and rocked back on her heels. Her eyes ranged across the front of the store. From the owner's vantage point, Anna seemed to be sizing it up. Just as he opened his mouth to holler at her, Anna's right hand rocketed from her pocket. In her hand was a snub-nosed 45. She aimed and fired. The man hit the floor, throwing his arms protectively around his head. After she emptied the magazine, she strolled across the street as if nothing had happened. Seeing the boys gaping at her, Anna said, "Just tell y'all to take your black asses to the The boys ran into the building and up the stairs. The man lay there for a long while, whimpering into the linoleum and squirming in his soaked hands. When he finally summoned the courage to pull himself up off the floor, he saw that the windows were riddled with bullet pits. When I heard this story, I posed the same question I had during the first story about this. Did you?
You know, I think that just really did. It was beautiful. And you know, that's part of the reason why, like I said, I was like every other page. I was like, oh, I mean, throughout the book, really masterful, really beautiful. I do want to ask one question before we throw it to the audience, which is, I always find that when there's a big project when it's finished, right? It's finished. And I love that the image of you sipping on Grand Marnier as you write. But you know, after there's like a great trial, which we'll call it writing the book, maybe a great trial. There's a lot that you had to go through. There's 4 years of work. What do you feel like was the ancestors gave you, like, right? Like there's the trial, and then when it's over, they open their palm. And what do you feel like was in that palm for you?
Oh, they give me a house. They give me a house. That I was not expecting. That's the whole other story. But also, they gave me another level of confidence, because this is a completely different genre. I have been writing short creative nonfiction, but not a full 400 pages. And so now I can pick that up my list, like, okay, I did that. So I'm enjoying exploring writing across genres. That's a challenge for me, a personal challenge. So that was, yeah, yes. Thank you.
So I think we're gonna open it up to questions. And if you like, you can come to the microphone and um, ask your questions.
Hello. So, what I love most about your works is the familiarity that you have. Just like you guys were talking about, it's like listening to family friends or family like sitting at the table, because I was that child too. I was quiet in the room and I got to hear all of the stories, and I really love that. So what I would like to know, like, do you feel a sense of responsibility in with your writing, with doing that, or is that just like a byproduct of you writing and telling your stories?
Do I feel a sense of responsibility to my family?
To your readers to make it familiar.
No. No, you know why? Because, and this was something that came up yesterday too. So I write for me first. If you enjoy it, oh, that's like great. But I write it for me, and that's the one thing, right, that I know I can form with. So, and I write stories that I want to read. And I guess it always sounds conversational because that's how I hear it in my head. Thank you. Thank you for your Is that?
Sweetheart, you are amazing. I'm so glad that my husband was able to pick up my daughter so I could get here to see you tonight. I have so many things, but the first quick one is there a moratorium on telling a family story? Like, do you decide, is it too soon to tell a story? Or do I have to wait till they're dead to tell a story?
Oh, um, first of all, Vanessa Riley, fabulous novelist. I think it's,
I get a phone, I gotta wait till they're dead. Well, I tell all the business.
I don't know. I think it depends on the family, and I think it depends on the circumstances. And I think, and I'm gonna say, I think it depends on the family. Again, I would say that because family can be very complicated. And I think also, people carry their ancestors' shame. I didn't do that. So I don't need to be ashamed of something that Uncle Joe did, right? I'm not gonna be ashamed of that. But I do think that it's important that we tell those stories so that the descendants can see it. Like, oh, this sounds like what he was doing, and this wasn't a good thing, or she was doing, and that wasn't a good thing. And also, I like, you know, I read that we carry at least 12 generations of our family's DNA in our body. That's so interesting to me. I want to know why I write, why I like reading, why I like salt and not sugar. You know, things like that. All of that. Did I answer your question?
First of all, that was great, and I probably will steal it. But number two, you said at the very beginning of this fabulous talk, you said style and structure, knowing when it's right. You have written different styles, and this one it sounded like you searched for a minute. How did you know it was the right structure?
You know who really helped me with that was my editor. That's why it's important to have a great editor, because as the writer, you're so close to it, right? You're so close, you can't always see it. So And then I took time. Like I gave to her and I stepped away for a few weeks. But it started kind of piecing together because I felt very uncomfortable about the whole navel gazing thing. I didn't just want to write about me. I don't think my life is that interesting. But my life intertwined with the lives of my foremothers, my life intertwined with the history of America. That's interesting. So I just went back to my roots because I love history. And I was like, why am I avoiding inserting that in the story? So, and it just takes time, it takes work, it takes a lot of work. And a lot of, even when you're not physically writing, that's the other thing. You're always writing in your head, and a lot of people who love us don't understand that. You know, why can't I come back? Why can't you have a conversation? You're laying on the couch, but I'm thinking they're always with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Congratulations. I love you very much.
Thank you.
And I want to know.
First of all, so, editorial,
It is, but she started it.
Yes.
But in that same vein, what did you find to be the most challenging thing for you to do once you got the manuscript all on paper and in the structure and refining it? Including content, because I also wonder, there are stories that you want to tell going in, but often in the process, other things jump up.
Yeah.
And so I wanted
there were a lot of stories that I had to take out, a lot of the vignettes that it wasn't working. There was I can't think of her name right now, but she was an editor when I first started publishing. And she told me this thing. She said, Bernice, you have this issue that a lot of first-time writers have. And I was like, what's that? First novelitis. You trying to throw everything. And I think the idea is that, like, I may not get this chance again. And I have a lot that I want to say. And so, first memoir, like, I may not get this chance again. So I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that, and so my editor was like, that's not, you have a theme here. This doesn't really fit with what you're trying to say. And you will get another chance at this. So I was like, you got the crystal ball, okay. So I have those things. It's like when I first wrote Sugar, I had so much in there. And I had to cut like 100 pages, and those 100 pages found its way in the sequels, meaning it's her. So it's not a loss, right?
Yeah, it's never a lot.
You save it, don't throw it away.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, my dear.
I was told that there's another book. Was this a rumor that it's going to be told from the paternal side?
Yes, so this memoir, yeah, not yet. I'm going to finish my novel. But yeah, because I focus a lot on the paternal side. So the next memoir, I want to focus on the paternal part. That's where this house that I have came up. And in fact, yesterday I was in DC with my first cousin, 4 times removed, that I found in 2021 when I went down south to write this memoir. And we're family, and now it's just like I am so intrigued by the connection that happened in my life. And it's not just me. I think we all have these stories.
The beautiful thing about being a writer, though, I have to say, is the ability to do it so well of making those connections, seeing that, okay, this connects to this, connects to this, connects to this, and this is the story. You do it wonderfully.
I want to say something. Karen wrote this essay, the year we graduated from our MFA program. It was published in the New Yorker. So about Sarah Bland. What was the title? Remembering Sandra Bland.
In the town I
Right.
grew up.
So it's such a beautiful essay. And so when I started teaching at Tulane, and I really started getting into reading creative nonfiction, I discovered this form called the lyric essay. And this is like a lyric essay, right? Big expansive lyric essay. So I have my students read this essay every semester. So I'm like, this lyric essay, like lyric, what's that? But we are doing things that actually that we don't know there are words for. And I think that's happening. And that if you haven't read it, please, it'll blow you away.